Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
With all due respect to Steph Curry, the 2022 NBA season was the Ja Morant show. The Lakers might say he's staying, but Russell Westbrook's future is the top interest this offseason. And the drama at the US Open shows just how good the PGA Tour is right now. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. The Golden State Warriors get their fourth title in 8 years. LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook miss the playoffs. A young Boston team finally realizes their potential and makes it to the finals. The 2021-2022 NBA season was full of awesome storylines. Bringing in now our NBA insider, longtime guard, Antonio Daniels. And Antonio, when you look at this season, what is going to stand out for you?
Okay, I'm going to start in the regular season. I think what stood out for me in the regular season, and you can kind of parallel to the postseason, is we saw a couple teams in the finals that we did not expect to see in the finals. You know what I mean? With all due respect to both Boston and Golden State. Think about what Steph Curry said. He said, you know what, this is probably the most meaningful one because it was the toughest one. You go all the way back to their previous 3 championships, they were expected. They were expected to get there. You know, the year where they ran through the league, and I believe it was 2015, and then the back-to-backs with Kevin Durant, they were expected. This year, they were not expected to get there. The Boston Celtics, I think there was one point they were 3 games below 500. 3 games below 500. So who would have thought at that time, with a team that is 3 games below 500, struggling to put it all together, and all the talk around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown not meshing well, maybe you need to move one. And here they are in the second week of June playing in the NBA Finals. But for me, I felt like the biggest stories of this year were things that didn't happen the way we thought. You look at the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, that team. Who would have thought that team would not make the NBA playoffs? That team would not make it to the play-in game. And then you go to Brooklyn. Look at how we thought about Brooklyn to start the season. I know I had Brooklyn coming out the East to start the season. Remember, when the season started, they had Kevin Durant, they had James Harden, and they had Kyrie Irving. Lo and behold, James Harden's moved to Philadelphia. You bring in Ben Simmons, who doesn't play a game, and they get swept first round by this same Boston Celtics team that I referenced a minute ago. So there are a number of surprises. For me, you can talk about what was the surprise of things that we didn't expect, as far as the Golden State Warriors and Boston Celtics meeting in the NBA Finals, also Brooklyn getting swept first round, and the Lakers not even making it to a play-in opportunity.
I like to think about NBA seasons, not just through the champion, but what players did that season, so what players represented that season when we think about that season. And Nikola Jokic, I thought, was a deserving MVP candidate, Joel Embiid, Giannis. But I wonder if the finals makes this now the Steph Curry season. Is there a player who is now going to stand out from this season for you?
Yeah, but it's not about, for me, when I think about the players that are going to stand out, it's not the usual suspects. You know what I mean? Some of the guys that you just named, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's what we expect from Steph. That's what we expect from Giannis. That's what we expect from the Joker. You know what I mean? But when you have guys that take the proverbial step from being good to being elite, from being elite to stardom, that's where the conversation happens. I think of somebody like Ja Morant. I think of who Ja Morant has been. Yes, a really, really good basketball player. But this year, he took that leap to stardom, to being special, to being elite. I think of someone like Jason Tatum. Yes, Jason Tatum's been really good. He's been an all-star. That's fantastic. First team All-NBA this year. So when I think of guys that took the proverbial step, not the usual suspects. These guys that we're talking about, the Jokic's, the Embiid's, the Steph Curry's, the Kevin Durant's, these guys have been great for as long as we can remember. It's when you start to see the young up-and-coming players take that step from being really good to elite to stardom.
Check out Locked On NBA as they wrap up the season and look ahead to the draft. You can find it everywhere you get podcasts, including YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports today your first listen. We have an important favor to ask you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcasts even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks for your help. Coming up, reports are that he will remain in LA, but what happens to Russell Westbrook will be what everyone is watching this offseason in the NBA. Here's what to look for on BetOnline, your number one spot for all your daily gambling needs. Let's dig into Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. The money line favors the Lightning getting on the board in this series. BetOnline likes Tampa to beat Colorado tonight, -107. The total reflects a game that's expected to be low scoring. BetOnline has the over-under set at 6. And as far as props go, if you believe Andrei Vasilevskiy will get at least 36 saves, BetOnline odds on him doing that are set at -118. BetOnline, where the game starts. With the NBA Finals now in the books, the NBA is really just heating up. We have the draft coming up here in just a matter of days. Free agency will be here before you know it. There's already all kinds of rumors and even just coaching drama going on with what happened with Kenny Atkinson and Golden State and Charlotte. So bringing in now our NBA insider, longtime NBA guard Antonio Daniels, to try and make sense of some of these storylines. Antonio, what are some teams, some players that you have your eye on here in the next couple of weeks who could be on the move, who have decisions to make? What are you looking at here?
Well, I think some of the things that you referenced, I think are important. I think it speaks to the strength of the Golden State Warriors coaching staff, with Kenny Atkinson getting the head job in Charlotte, but also Mike Brown getting the head job in Sacramento. So those are two guys that are next to Steve Kerr that won't be next to Steve Kerr next year. I'm so interested. Mike Brown was my coach here in San Antonio for a number of years. Love Mike Brown. I am so interested to see what he does as far as culture building in Sacramento, now that they have Domas Sabonis to match along with Davion Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox. I wish nothing but success to him. I also want to see how Kenny Atkinson handles that young up-and-coming Charlotte roster. Because, one of the other names that was mentioned was Mike D'Antoni. And the one thing we know about Mike D'Antoni throughout his coaching career, he's the quote-unquote point guard whisperer. James Harden, MVP, Steve Nash, two-time MVP, Jeremy Lin, Linsanity. So he's done a great job at putting point guards in a position of success, and they have LaMelo Ball there. So obviously they went another direction with Coach Kenny Atkinson. The team I have my eye on. Call me biased because I am their cutter analyst. I have my eye on the New Orleans Pelicans. This is a team last year that at one point was 3-16. End up making it to the playoffs, winning 2 play-in games versus the San Antonio Spurs and then the Los Angeles Clippers. Then pushing the Phoenix Suns, who at that time had the best record in the league by far. Understand, they did this through this entire season without their best player, a generational talent in Zion Williamson. So when you add Zion Williamson next to Brandon Ingram, next to CJ McCollum, next to Jonas Valanciunas, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, these kind of guys, it could be a special season in New Orleans.
And Zion's future, we still don't know what the future of Zion Williamson is in New Orleans. And so to have a great season could go a long way into helping make sure that he sticks around with that franchise, with that organization. They've done a good job of putting pieces around them. They were one of the great stories of the end of that season and pushed the Phoenix Suns, as you mentioned. Player movement, free agency, trades. We know there's going to be a blockbuster deal that no one saw coming. I'm not going to ask you to peer inside your crystal ball and predict that, because otherwise we would have seen it coming. You can't predict these things. But are there some decisions out there, some teams out there that you think would benefit from saying, we need to make a big shakeup, or if I'm a player, I need to look for a different opportunity because it's just not going to happen here?
I tell you who jumps like immediately when you're asking that question, what jumped out to me, obviously, is Russell Westbrook and the Los Angeles Lakers. First and foremost, you can look at that situation. You can look at the situation with John Wall in Houston. As far as these are decisions that have to be made. One, in essence, in the Los Angeles Lakers for your team. John Wall for the individual. You know, Houston right now is in a complete rebuild mode, and obviously John Wall is not a part of that moving forward. So they have to come to some sort of common ground. Okay, are you going to buy him out? How is that going to work? Is he going to give some money back? Whatever it may be. But Russell Westbrook, I think, is the big piece here, because you figure after the way this year played itself out, what's next? Can Coach Darvin Ham find a way to implement Russell Westbrook and his skill set alongside both LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Can that happen? Can Russell Westbrook take a back seat and not be Batman, not be Robin, but possibly be Alfred? You know, be the third option. You know, will Russell Westbrook sacrifice and possibly come off the bench if that's what's best for the LA Lakers? And if not, now it's time to start taking a look at, okay, can you move him? Who can use him? How do you kind of navigate that whole situation moving forward for the Los Angeles Lakers? I think that is the biggest offseason question.
Andy and Brian Kamenetsky will have the Lakers offseason covered from baseline to baseline. Check out Locked On Lakers on YouTube and anywhere you can find podcasts. Coming up, the U.S. Open came down to the wire and asserted the PGA Tour's dominance over golf. One mistake. That's all Matthew Fitzpatrick made seemingly all day. And it was on the 72nd hole of the U.S. Open, bunkering himself on the last with a chance to close out the championship. But from less than 160 yards, he hits an unbelievable shot and holds off all chasers, Will Zalatoris, Scotty Scheffler, and others, to win the U.S. Open at the Country Club in Brookline, Mass. Joining me now from Locked On Big 12, our resident golf fanatic, Josh Neighbors. And Josh, this is a historic win for Matthew Fitzpatrick, who becomes just the second male golfer to win the U.S. Amateur and the U.S. Open at the same golf course. And what a year for young golfer. Scotty Scheffler at 25 wins the Masters. Justin Thomas at 29 wins the PGA Championship. And now Matthew Fitzpatrick at 27 wins the U.S. Open. What stands out to you from this week?
Well, today, especially the 17 of 18 greens in regulation. I mean, at a U.S. Open, if you're going to do that, that's probably going to get it done if you're in contention, because we saw Zalatoris really playing catch up there on the back nine. I mean, there's a lot of those errant tee shots that caused him basically to be, had to do an iron shot and a putt to try and save par. And that's kind of what made his 2-shot lead evaporate and then caused him to be playing from behind the end. Zalatoris in his last few, Fitzpatrick in his last few holes, so solid, just really solid. And that will get it done, especially if you're in the lead. It was changing hands so much. This was an excellent day of golf. This was such a fun day. This was the most kind of U.S. Open day you can imagine. Guys all packed the top, switching spots because of how difficult the course was. And the guys who kind of stood out, Scheffler, I think, and Fitzpatrick the most, getting kind of the job done, and Fitzpatrick most of all with that consistency.
What do you think this represents now? Because we had a lot of guys at the top of the leaderboard. Carl Morikawa spit the bit. John Rahm, he struggles on Sunday. Rory McIlroy not able to get it going, but Matthew Fitzpatrick held all these guys off, and that was the big question with him. He was this impressive young Euro player, but has struggled in these big spots in tournaments past. Are we looking at someone who now the floodgates could open? Because this was as solid a ball striking performance as you're going to see at a major championship.
Well, we keep saying the floodgates could open for these guys, and like they do. But the problem is that we talk about Tiger so much. Like, long gone are those days where somebody's going to dominate like that. Just because there's too many good players, there are too many guys who are too good. I'm not saying that I love Tiger. You and I both love Tiger. It's great, but that era, like, the players weren't as good as they are now. There are too many guys who are way too good at golf. It's kind of the simple answer. And on any given week, as we see right here, one of these guys can go out there and win a tournament like this. And, I don't think back in the old days, I'm not sure how many guys could go out there and have the performance that he had today. but he went out there and did it, and was in contention and then got the job done. And I don't think it's a lack of quality thing. I think it's just there are so many guys who are so good now.
So I want to ask this question in a particular kind of way, because Scotty Scheffler comes out, he plays the first 5 holes in 3 under, has a chance on 18 to essentially force a playoff if the rest of the holes play out the way that they did with Matthew Fitzpatrick. He comes up just short, but his last 6 months are like, we're talking about Tiger level, Rory at his peak. Like, those are the last time we saw a guy just constantly win these big tournaments like this. And then on the other hand, Will Zalatoris, he's now been in second at the PGA Championship, the Masters last year, and the US Open. Which one of those stories, the always the bridesmaid, never the bride, or the, wow, this guy's on a historic run, which one of those guys do you think you will remember this tournament as?
I think Scheffler, the way he went out there, just, because like, I think we have a soft spot for Zalatoris, but really he was kind of relatively unknown until recently. Speaking of the last couple of years, really is when he kind of made that push, that charge. Scotty's kind of been around for a little bit now. And I think for him, to just the kind of mentally sound player that he is, kind of go back to the point I just made, like, if this performance is given in kind of maybe 10 years earlier, he wins. There aren't that many guys who can catch him. He goes out there and wins this tournament because there aren't that many guys who can go out there and catch him. But now there's like 4 or 5 who today could have gone out there and caught him. And so I think, it's one of those deals where it's like, in comparative to how hot he was, he's cooled off, right? But still, this is impressive to go and play at these different events and play as well as he had. Wins the Masters and now at the U.S. Open, completely different events, normally speaking, based off where they play, especially based off where they play. For him to have these performances, it still shows he's right there. Like, he's still world number 1. There's no quality drop off for him right now, in my opinion.
All right. So as we look into the future here quickly, as we finish up the Open Championship, I almost said the British Open. Golf fans are going to get mad at me if I do that. Just a couple weeks away. Do we have a new favorite? Is it Matthew Fitzpatrick now?
Well, I think people will go that way because obviously, that people would say, "Oh, British going home." But like you see here, like I would say when you go to British soil, it actually does favor the European players more than a U.S. course does favor United States players, just because there's so much, like, there are so many Europeans who play here in the U.S. as opposed to there's not many U.S. players who go and play on the European tours. So I would say, it probably does favor guys like that. I mean, I don't know how, though, you'd go there and you wouldn't favor a guy like Scotty Scheffler, right? I mean, he's just playing so damn well, so consistent. I would say Jon Rahm, too, right? At a U.S. Open to play this well, you kind of like the way that he's going there. Odds-wise, I think you and I both know, Peter, Rory is going to be a very, very sexy pick because obviously playing in the UK and, with how he's been playing, he's kind of had the bridesmaid feel recently, and just in terms of quality of play. So I think Rory will be the favorite. Fitzpatrick will be up there, but as far as Europeans go, I would go Rahm and I'd go Rory before I would put Fitzpatrick there.
Yes. Rory will absolutely waste my money at the British Open. I can guarantee that will happen. You can, of course, catch Josh every day on Locked On Big 12 and Locked On Nationals, everywhere podcasts are, and also on YouTube. Speaking of the Nationals, and finally, Ryan Zimmerman has seen a lot of firsts for the Washington Nationals. He was the team's first ever draft pick. He led the squad that won their first World Series, and now he is the first ever National to have his number retired. In an off-field ceremony just before Saturday's game with the Philadelphia Phillies, the man known as Mr. National removed a blue uniform with the number 11 that would be put on display. A plaque was also unveiled of Zimmerman and his number on the facade of the upper deck in foul territory between home plate and right field, a fitting tribute to a dying breed, the player who stays with an organization his entire career. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Now go make your second listen the ultimate NBA mock draft. Locked On NBA brings you a mock draft unlike any other. Rafael Barlow from Locked On NBA Big Board, joined by every Locked On NBA host, plus some NBA insiders from Odyssey to deliver picks and analysis. Locked On does mock drafts better than anyone else, and the ultimate NBA mock draft is the perfect example. Coming up Tuesday, can the Tampa Bay Lightning begin to salvage this Stanley Cup series? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.